you're focused too much on a specific task, problem, word, and you seem to not be your authentic self.
Yeah.
We just give the information as how we think it should be received by everyone. But we don't realize that some people like a little bit more fluff to it. Some people like brass tacks, they just want numbers. And other people, they like to be more personal before they get into the deal. Anyone can do a comp on a property. Anyone can tell you a marketing strategy. Sure, they might be different, but what really sets it apart is your tone and your personality. How do you come across and how can you relate to anyone that you come in contact with?
Welcome to the Prime People Podcast. Today, we're joined by Jamie Bederak, a visionary in commercial real estate who is rewriting the rules of mixed-use retail, hotel, and development projects across the U.S. with over a decade of experience, including anchoring the internationally renowned Brickell City Center in Miami and strategic deals in LA and NYC. Jamie is the deal maker developers and global brands turn to when they need somebody who commands the room. Prepare for some insights on grit, strategy, and building ecosystems. And she digs into all kinds of things that I know you'll be interested in, like how she's using AI at a very high level to be more human and build better relationships. Starting with what you said about personality types, like I'm going to see a farmer who's later in age and likes to be communicated with in a specific way. And if I showed up in a three-piece suit with a tie, I'm not getting the listing just because the perception and how they like to be communicated with. Also, like I love marketing and I can go down a wormhole into how I'm going to get eyeballs on the property and what I'm going to do from a digital perspective and the CRM and reverse prospecting. And like, it'll fly over his head to the point where he'll just think I'm just talking for the sake of talking like a salesperson, where like he cares about a few really basic things. And the other thing I was going to touch on was coin. I remember this clear as day when ChatGPT first came out, dropped a recipe of like 5 different things for a listing presentation. And I still have it in a note. I transcribed it in an app, put it in my note, and I was using it. But like the speed at which all of the AI technology progressing is insane, right? Where you can create something like an Oracle and like incorporate it into your business. But I think it makes you more valuable as a human. Because I think your context and input at the beginning and then you refining that at the end is where the real magic actually happens, right?
100%. It gives you the framework that you need in order to set up the conversation. And I will tell you, it has helped me so much. I've dealt with some really high net worth individuals that love to buy all asset classes of commercial property. And I can tell you in our conversations in the very beginning, they seemed a little bit more difficult to deal with because they were brass tacks. They just wanted the numbers. They wanted it quick and go on. So I put this into ChatGPT and I did my research on how to communicate. And they both of their, even though they're two vastly different people, they both came back was they like a relatable essence. So fun fact, I am now great friends with both of these investors, and one of which actually sends me pictures of food all the time. And it's not just pictures of food. It's where we'll both send them when we're halfway done with the food and you take a smiley face and you put everything in a smiley face and you just send that picture. So you wouldn't think about anyone I'm doing business with to send pictures of food and smiley faces, but it's the relatable aspect. I would never do that personally because I would never even think about it. But now that I think about it, I'm like, that's the way that person likes to relate to me. And actually, it's fun to relate back to them. And sometimes it'll get my gears rolling about, oh, asparagus. This will make a really funny smiley face.
That's funny. It gives you the permission to be yourself, right? I think, and especially working with high net worth individuals, a lot of times people put this facade on them that they never told you was how they wanted to be treated. Like more often than not, they actually want you to be straight up honest with them. They want you to treat them like an actual human being and not like a celebrity, where like most of the rooms they walk into when they pull up in a McLaren or they show up with the things that they have, there's this instant classification of you're this type of person, when in reality, like a lot of the most affluent people I know, you never actually know what they have because they don't act like it and they don't want to be treated like that.
Right.
And they think until you build a rapport, you're just another salesperson, right? Like the amount of agents that will text these types of people just to take them out for coffee or grab a lunch with them. Once you have that rapport with that person, it's on a different level where you can send them a GIF or send them a funny photo of food. It really creates levity. And I've also noticed like very, very smart business people end up when they're with people talking 80% about everything else, and like 20% is getting down to business, but it usually comes after the 80%, right?
Yes, 100%. And that's how I've seen the transition. But if you think about it, most people would think, okay, if I'm going to do commercial real estate and I'm going to work with an investor, or I want to win this property, I have to give them the comps, the analysis, what's sold, what's moving in the market, who's moving here, what would be their buyer, what would be their marketing plan. Guess what? Anyone and everyone can do that.
Yeah.
Anyone can do a comp on a property. Anyone can tell you a marketing strategy. Sure, they might be different, but what really sets it apart is your tone and your personality. How do you come across, and how can you relate to anyone that you come in contact with? That is gold. That is my bread and butter of always be yourself and always shine through every deal that you are dealing with and handle it with grace, because your smile is your personality, and you're creating a logo for yourself with all of this. There's actually a really cool quote on it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it is the best quote. And I used to put it in all my email signatures. And it's very true, because when you look at how many commercial agents, which there's not as many as residential, but I've been in commercials for 16 years.
Yeah.
So the big question of what sets you apart from anyone else is having the personality that's relatable, having a personality that people want to feed from your energy. People want to call you, they want to text you, they want to ask for advice. They don't want to think that you're just a robot that will give them a strategic answer. They want an answer that's coming from you and your personality and your expertise, not from ChatGPT told me that this property is comped at this and all of that's great. But who are you in your essence? Who are you to be able to relate?
I laugh when you talk about commercial real estate because I started as a commercial real estate broker, still run a division here at Prime, and we do a lot of commercial real estate. I was just talking to Roger, ex-helicopter pilot, amazing commercial agent on my team. And I was like, man, I'm like, the gatekeepers in this industry are going to be in trouble in another 5 or 10 years. Cause like their value proposition is gatekeeping information, not telling you what that place leased for, what the inducements were. They don't put anything on the public system because once it's out there, they're scared that they have no value beyond running comps or whatever. You talk about the smiles. One of the grumpiest industries you'll ever imagine is commercial real estate. And there's some guys that I think are like a caricature of the industry, and I actually love them for it because they are everything about what that is. And that's okay, because that is truly who they are. And they're going to find clientele, and I'm going to work with them, and we're going to collaborate, and that's totally fine. But there is this new life coming into the industry. And I've actually noticed it from a high level perspective, because institutional companies and investors previously operated like that first avatar of what a commercial agent has been. But a lot of the people that are starting companies now, that are making decisions, that are in tech, that are the thought leaders of the new generation of people that are setting up offices, building industrial, buying land and developing it, they didn't come up in that industry, and they're not the old guard. A lot of them are exactly like you and I. They're much fresher, smiling a lot more. They're having fun with their life. They're being a little bit more holistic about their health and their family wellness. Although they're running incredible companies, it's a different company than 100 people in an office that are just punching a clock that hate their lives. The companies these guys are running, like, they're trying to create incredible ecosystems so people feel excited to come to work again. And I think that's where you're seeing a big disparity and gap in the marketplace, right? To serve that new breed. Is that what you're seeing in LA, Florida, New York?
I can't preach that enough. And I don't think a lot of people really understand it still, because it's just breaking through the market, right? It's the always wearing black, always wearing a suit and tie. Guess what? I wear hot pink. It's totally fine. I'm a woman in commercial real estate. So when you're breaking bounds of, oh, you're wearing, bright colors and you're fashion forward and you're a female in commercial real estate, that is one hurdle. Your next hurdle is, but how do you handle a transaction?
Yeah.
And that is knowing 16 years worth of commercial real estate background, especially coming from a developer standpoint, knowing how to work a deal, but not just doing it with blinders on. You have to go in it holistically and see the full picture. And I'm talking about if you're doing a deal on, say, one property and it's 2 acres, and the zoning only calls for 32 units for that
Mhm.
for that 2 acres, right? But your developer really wants that piece of land. However, he's going to pass on it because he wants 4 acres. Most people, and I can tell you 99% of people, I'd be like, okay, we'll find you something different.
Yep.
My mind works a little bit different of, okay, you like that piece of land. Let me approach the people on each side
Hmm.
and see if they're interested in selling.
Yeah.
Have meetings, be relentless, don't give up, and go in person. You
Yeah.
can make a phone call all you want. People receive phone calls, people receive text messages, people receive emails. I actually did this morning. So I have a meeting lined up to go in person to see a property to work on this very thing of, okay, my client wants a middle purchase, but needs more land.
Yeah.
So I have learned through this that they're willing to sell for the right price. What does that mean? Guess what? We're back on the table. And it's getting creative about a deal structure and not just seeing one thing, okay, that didn't work, pivot to the next, back to the drawing board. I don't like to go back to the drawing board. I like to be creative.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were talking, I'm like, well, maybe you can actually increase the density and do the 64 units on the 2-acre site. Like, and a client that has an agent like you thinking like that, I'm going to go to the neighbor's house and go to their house in person and have a conversation with them. They value you so much because you're not just ticking a box and sending them something they can find on MLS themselves, right? Because I mean,
Right.
truthfully, they have access to it. They want somebody that's going to dig up deals, be in touch with the brokers that are selling those types of property in collaboration, and then do the interpretation, then just bring them the 20% they need to know to make a decision so they can focus on running their business, right?
Right.
I guess, like, where are you based right now? What are the territories that you kind of work in?
So that is a question depending on the day.
Yeah.
I laugh about that all the time because I get the question. I am based in Palm Beach County.
Okay.
However, I have deal flow that spans all across the country and even internationally. So I have some deals I'm working in Belize
Wow.
and something I've drummed up even in Turkey for a huge resort. So, but that is all based on collaboration at the same
Yeah.
time. This isn't just me drumming up this business. This is being in the right rooms with the right people that are saying, hey, I ran across this opportunity. I don't know how to work this moving forward, or I need help, or I'm stretched to my limit. Can you help? Boom, you jump in. Absolutely. What do you need from me? And
Mhm.
it's a game of relationships because the more relationships you have, the more you're out there, the more people see your face, know and trust you, and know what you do. And that segues into what Ryan preaches all the time about social media. Use
Mhm.
it, it is the best platform. And before Ryan and joining Serhant, I actually had a separate real estate account and a separate personal. And he preaches that people want to know you as a person. So, okay, cool. They're going to see just real estate, but who are you?
Mhm.
So then they're going to go to your personal page and vice versa. So, collaborating that all in one, yes, it's a challenge at first because you have to make sure that you're balanced. You show an equal amount of work versus your personal. And I have a series on my Instagram that talks about what incarnation is my husband up to. And the amount of people that reach out to me just on that series
That's funny.
is phenomenal. And I've actually gotten 4 leads just from that series.
What
Just
type
from
of stuff does he do?
what doesn't he do? Okay, I can't leave him home alone. Okay, just this week alone, he sent me a video pretending like he was in a cage and there was pterodactyls outside,
Oh,
but
wow.
they're sandhill cranes, but literally they're life size. So the way he was videoing it was hilarious.
Oh, that's funny.
Sometimes he'll text me and he'll be like, hey, can you get ready? I'm going to take you on date night. And then I look up and he's driving a boat into like, because I live right on the water. So he's driving a new boat, like right into the front yard. I'm like, what are you doing? And then he'll have excavators come in through here. And he was like, oh, I decided to just add on to the house or do this. So the amount of people that follows the What in Tarnation series, it's great. And the last one he bought, I think it was like 170-gallon tote bins from Husky.
Oh, wow.
And I said, why'd you buy these? And he was like, well, they were on sale. I'm like, I don't understand.
Do you need tote bins that are that big?
So I actually got in it inside the tote, and he was like, let me see if they float. And he pushed me into our pool.
Oh, wow.
Floats. So
That's
now
amazing.
he has another idea, and he said he's ordered something in which I don't know yet. So spoiler alert, I think he's going to try to put a motor on these tote bins.
I was going to say he's going to do either that or a floating dock out of these tote bins and start a dock business.
I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past him. But that's something where you're also relatable because this is my life. And I'm okay to share it. And it's something that opens the doors that says, I'm human. Mm-hmm. I have a life outside of real estate, even though I will answer the phone at 10 p.m. if someone calls me, because real estate isn't something that's just a job for me. It is truly my passion. And I don't know really where it came from because I studied to be an anesthesiologist. Oh, wow. And I was fascinated with health, and so was my sister. So I have 4 sisters, but going through college and studying anesthesiology, and then all of a sudden I realized my personality is too vibrant to be in a room where I can't talk to someone. So I was reached out to by a developer. It was actually Westfield. So I moved from Tennessee all the way to California, and I worked for Westfield for a good 13 years.
How old were you when you moved down there?
I was 22 years old.
And where in Tennessee were you from before that?
So I was from Johnson City.
Oh, interesting. We go to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. It's like Niagara Falls on steroids for my Canadian friends watching this.
Yeah.
But we have a huge affinity for like Franklin and all of those different areas. So yeah, we'll
right outside my town.
Yeah, we love the people there. And it's great because I think being able to grow up in a place like that and then transition to LA, I think you probably had a really good base confidence. Starting to be an anesthesiologist and then going to LA to work for a developer. Like, what was that transition like? What type of work did you do in the development space?
I can tell you one thing, it was scary because I knew nothing about it. And the president, he was like, just give me a year. Promise you'll give it a year. I said, okay, I'll give it a year. I ended up working about 3 months into it, getting the knowledge of the base, how everything works. And from then I was just like, I live, eat, and breathe this. I can't put it down. I love it so much. And I've never left the industry since.
What did he have you doing? And I guess where in LA? LA is pretty big, or was it a specific area?
I first started out in Santa Anita. So Arcadia, the Westfield that's there in conjunction with the racetrack. And I would go to the racetrack all the time. So my affinity starting out was taking a development site and understanding how does that development site fit the location. And my mindset was being more in transformation of how do you transform this development site or this shopping center into something that is truly magnetic, that brings people in, instead of having to use so much marketing to bring people in. What can you do? How can you design it? How can your mind work simultaneously on a project that makes people see it and want to go? It's almost watching a preview. You watch a preview, you want to watch that movie, or at least most of them.
I'm working on a deal right now. I'm smiling because we put a tenant in right over my shoulder in a spot. He actually sold his company, did very well, opened up a business, and I've got a LOI on place on another site. And they got a great tenant mix at this other site. It's all like health and wellness, and that's the space he's in. And then it's between us and like a bread company. And I was talking to the leasing rep and I'm like, nobody's bred anymore. Like, what are we even talking about? Like, I know we are the demographic that uses his facility. It's next to a gym. There's a really cool social pub there. And I'm like, it's our demo. I'm like, if he's there, it's going to add to the vibrancy of it. Like, it sells your entire development itself. And I don't think a lot of people get that. I think a lot of people think about real estate development sometimes as just numbers. Who's going to give me the best deal so that the valuation of the building goes up and blah, blah, blah. They don't look at the art behind it that actually will increase your overall value over time. You may make more money on an individual deal, but holistically, how does that affect the rest of your development, right?
I love that you say that, because actually that's my favorite term, my favorite phrase is the art of the deal.
Yeah.
And that translates into everything I do. And I'm very transparent. When I'm talking to a brand that is interested in a development and I'm leasing it up, I will be very transparent and say, hey, we are targeting a certain co-tenancy.
Sure.
We have F&B, we have health and wellness. Now, would this use fit? Would it be a great projection moving forward 5, 10, 15 years down the road? Not just right now.
Yeah.
But thinking about future wise too. How does everything click together like a puzzle piece? Mm-hmm. When you are doing a development and when you are working on a large project, right? And you have a multitude of spaces to fill if you're doing retail leasing, you have to think about that as a big puzzle, and it's all scattered out across your desk, and you have to pick up a piece and you have to put it down, and you have to pick up another piece and you have to put it down. You have to make these puzzle pieces fit together so seamlessly that they cannot be broken, because mm-hmm. guess what? That is your brand. When you are able to lease up a property and do it so well that this puzzle is unbreakable, that developer is going to continue to use you on future projects, because they know your strategy isn't just to lease a space, get a commission check, and buy. It's to lease these spaces with intention, the art of the deal.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you get trained on that early on in commercial real estate. The tenant mix is a huge part of it, but so many commercial brokers, I find all they care about is the transaction. How much money am I making on this deal? If I'm not making X amount of dollars or I'm not double ending it, I don't even want to work on it. That's the archaic agent in my mind that's going away, because the developers are savvy. The ones that we know that, we're designing our system for, they understand a lot of what's happening behind the scenes, and they also leverage it because they know that agents are desperate for deals, and they'll twist that dollar sign knife sometimes to get stuff out of them. And, the ones that have commission breath, in my mind, are going to struggle in the next generation, because I think the ones that are relationship driven, what's best for the client at every turn, you're going to end up with more cohesive relationships. And from a developer's perspective, like, you fit those puzzle pieces in perfectly together and you don't try and jam in like different tenants. The tendencies will never leave because they're going to be synergistic. They're going to help each other do more business. They're probably just going to keep renewing every year. And as your CAMs and your costs go up, like, they can afford it because there's an ecosystem there that supports their business.
Right.
Versus if you're just transactional and you put 5 tenants that don't actually help each other in any way, shape, or form, you're going to have turnover. You're going to have to rebuild out the units every time. You're going to have to pay broker fees every time you lease that space out. The other tenants are going to see the turnover. Again, you talked about brand. The brand of that development is nobody ever stays there for more than 5 years, right? Which is not what you want from a commercial real estate perspective.
Right. And that is actually how I came into contact with Brickell City Center. So when I first moved to Florida, I moved to Miami. That was a huge jump, going from LA to Miami.
What was the transition point? Like, why did you go from LA to Miami?
I was offered a position at Brickell City Center. So they flew me out and they had me walk the center. And this was this goes down as the most nerve-wracking interview. It wasn't us sitting on each side of the table talking about my experience. It was hands-on. So the VP, she walked me through the entire center and was asking for my input. And I said, okay, I'm either going to put myself in the grave here for saying exactly what I want to say, or she's going to think I'm just BSing because I'm like, oh, it's all great. And I'm like, okay, I'm from the South. I will tell you how it is. And that's how I prefaced it. I was like, listen, do you want my honest opinion or do you want fluff? And she kind of chuckled and we talked about it. And I said, to be honest, a lot of these brands, while they're great aesthetically, they're not producing the numbers. Why are they not producing the numbers? Because they're high-end brands from Italy and all across the globe that no one knows. Miami is a place where you have to speak to your shopper, to your demographic. So who is your demographic? So when that could not be answered, I said, that's something you have to dial back. So if I came onto this project, I would dial this back and I would understand who is the shopper. Let's do shopper profiles and let's understand which brands would actually work. So from 2018 to what it is now is the largest transformation I have ever seen in a development I've been a part of, to the point to where they now just sold, and it's public knowledge, so I can actually say this now, Brickell City Center just sold the retail and parking portion for $512 million.
So this is Brickell City Center when I pull it up.
Yeah, that's it.
That is no small development. That is unbelievable. And it's scary as somebody who say is newer to a city or market or pitching for a job to not just go in there and tell the seller what they want to hear to try and get a sign on their lawn, but actually tell them what they need to hear. Right. But what a great lesson for you. How long did you work on that project and what was it like?
I was there 5 years, and it got to a point where the center was done. It was complete. So I still have really great relationships with the president now, Henry Bott, and my old VP. We're really great. We're actually going to go tour something else next week, which is fun and upcoming. But still keeping those relationships alive, because it's something I think that is, to this day, my most favorite project I've ever been a part of. And having a message come from, the top executives in Swire saying you were an integral part of the success of Brickell City Center, that is the best statement I think I could ever hear in my entire career.
Yeah.
And it's something that I still think about, even though I received the message, quite a bit ago, and I knew about this transaction, and it's something it's just been bubbling up, and I've been ready to just explode to the world and tell everyone how amazing this is. But seeing a center go from underperforming, undervalued, it was 80%. There was a down of 80% occupancy, to the point just in 5 years where it is now to be able to sell for $512 million. That just speaks for itself. And that's the kind of transactions that you want to represent. It doesn't always have to be major $1 million transactions. It can be much smaller transactions, but you give the same touch point to it. You understand, how can this transform? What is this going to look like in year 5, 10, 15? And what can you do to help it transform? Even on a smaller transaction of under $1 million, they're all handled the same. Because you never know. Sometimes you actually might be working with a buyer that's like, hey, my budget for this property is $300,000.
For sure.
Great. But sometimes agents won't treat that property or that acquisition the same as they would a multi-million-dollar transaction, because they're like, oh, my commission. That's the mindset. Whereas my mindset is relationship. Great. We do this at $300,000, and you're going to continue to double that each time, because we know that this is a good asset and a good choice for you moving forward. And I've even told developers my honest opinion of, I know your portfolio. I know what you're looking for. And I truly don't think this is the right fit. I think there is a better fit.
Yeah.
Sure, that made me lose out on commissions, but it gained more leverage in my relationship with the people I work with, because I'm honest. I'm not just going to steer you in a direction where I know 3 to 5 years you're going to be calling me back and like, Jamie, I am in over my head.
Yeah. It's I had to part ways with a partner, and I remember the core value conflict that we had was around exactly what you're talking about. It was around, like, the writing on our wall is do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather than humility, value others before yourself. Easy to say and put on a wall, hard to put into practice when commissions and big dollar figures are on the table.
Right.
And he would constantly do this heavy analysis on how much money am I making on this deal before he would even work on the deal. And like I would get these massive developers, clients calling me with small files. And I would always say, like, a lot of times you're being tested. Steward the small stuff well, they'll give you big stuff to work on.
Right.
And we reached a conflict point, and I'm like, we can't continue this relationship unless we clear this up. We cleared it up, and the clearing up was, you don't belong here. There's other brokerages that are great for you. Go swim with some sharks. Like we're here for the long term. And it's funny. I have a file today. I have a call at 2:00 as soon as we're done this, with a lady with a $350,000 property where she got basically taken advantage of by a listing agent during the peak, double-ended it. She was going to build her dream home on this piece of agricultural land. She found out she couldn't, had no contingencies, no due diligence. The agent never gave her disclosures. So I'm going to clean up that mess. Down the road from a $20 million listing that I have on the 401 highway that is going to change that whole corner.
Right.
The question then becomes, am I going to treat that lady any different than the $20 million seller that I have? Absolutely not, because the $20 million seller is doing what he's doing for the grandkids. And if we discover that 20 to 25 million isn't on the market, I'm not going to sell it from this year. I'll tell him to keep it because it's for the grandkids. And maybe my daughter sells it for them in 15 or 20 years.
Right.
The lady is needing to get out of this so she can go build her dream home. Her life is on pause because of this. And I think if, like, as a commercial broker, I'm going to clip that portion that you just talked about. If you can truly focus on the people, the money comes, right? All the accolades come. The latent indicator of success is the sale of the $500 million asset that you were an integral part of. But that's not the active indicator of success. The active indicator of success is everything that you did up until there to make the sale actually happen, which nobody sees except for people on the inside.
Right.
But I think that's where people get perception wrong, is they look at social media and they think, I need the latent indicators of success, when in reality, you don't. You actually need the will to wake up every single day and do the active indicators of success, which you so eloquently put was taking care of the people above the profits. And I think somebody in the commercial real estate world doing that, I commend you, because it's pretty rare air, I think.
Yeah. And that's two rare pieces of the puzzle that you bring up is most times, 9 times out of 10, if it's not the first word out of their mouth, it's possibly the second or third sentence. What are the commissions? Mm-hmm. And at that point, I'm like, ugh, it's like a tear, because I'm like, oh, your client, I just wished I could hug them right now.
Yeah.
And two, it's simply answering the phone. I literally
keep the
phone on me all the time. The amount of brokers and agents that don't return text, emails, or phone calls within a timely manner, I have no words.
And the clients never know. That's the craziest part, right? Like the clients usually think, oh, it's weird that this place isn't leasing. Meanwhile, they like call your agent yourself and see how long it takes them to get back to you. You'll be shocked at what we see behind the scenes. And I mean, the industry set that standard, right? Put a sign up, let it sit there for 5 years and whatever. It's people will call us when it's time to go, but like people are real comfortable in this business. I also think with AI, automation, chatbots, it's going to be a lot less important to have somebody there on a sign with a phone number if they're not willing to go out there and be a little bit more proactive and follow back too, right? Like the amount of times you probably had to chase somebody like I'm doing with this lady. Don't hire the bread company, hire us. Down in that other plaza, I'm sending her memes and gifts. I actually sent her a message saying, hey, if you need more minutes for your phone, let me know. I'll buy you some so we can get this deal done. But we're friends. Like I know her well enough that I can totally chirp her, and she's training a new employee, so it's not her fault. But it's just those little things that, like, I'm going to see my client later and he's going to be like, hey, what's going on with that file? I tell him I did that. He's like, oh, Justin's got it handled. Mm-hmm. Versus when his client's asking you for an update and you have nothing to tell them because you haven't done anything. Well, then I don't think you deserve your commission. And I do think that the public has a perception of agents because it's kind of true in some instances, right?
Yeah. And even if you don't say, I make it a point to have a conversation with all of my clients, whether they're sellers or buyers or even tenants, right? Yeah. I make it a point to at least touch base 2 times a week. Yeah. Because even if they say, hey, you're like contacting me too much, at least you're always forefront of their mind.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And most everyone has social media nowadays. So they're seeing you active out there. They're seeing you're working on other projects. And probably in the back of their mind, they're like, well, how are they handling me and my project?
100%.
So if you're reaching out to them at least twice a week, they know that they're also top of mind. You're not just out here gallivanting, posting on social about other things going on in the industry, but you're also servicing your clients. That speaks for itself. I mean, I know just this week I've had a property that's a $30 million property that one of my investors wants. And I have reached out. I think today will be the fourth day. No response. So finally, it got to a point where I found out who her broker in charge was, and I put them all on a CC. And then finally, I get immediate response. So I hate that it actually has to come down to that, but setting that precedent of as long as you follow up and follow back and follow through.
Follow through.
Ryan's famous roads, right?
Yeah, no, shout out to the big dog. The Sir fam is a very big part of what we do here as well. He's been integral in our growth since before Sell It was even a thing, and definitely have a big affinity for you and all the agents. Jade was actually on last week, so we got back-to-back commercial experts talking about real estate. She crushed it, and the reason I brought her on too is I'm like, I think sometimes people get this misconception because they see social executed well that they don't have the skills to actually execute on a broker perspective. And I know you have it. I know she has it as well too. So I was happy you were able to make time for our audience. I know we have a heart out. Just want to wrap this up. Any message you want to leave for the audience that you think they need to hear when it comes to how to get out there and absolutely crush it in the world of commercial real estate?
I mean, my biggest word of advice, and I preached this from New York at 281 Park when I first joined with SERHANT, is follow up, follow through, follow back. A, answer your phone. B, and C, be relatable. Be you. Don't be the classic agent that has to be very structured. Be you, be yourself, and speak to what's truth and who you are. And don't be afraid to show it to the world.
I started this podcast too without even really telling you. We were talking about AI and everything because I just find the authentic conversations are the best. And I think also don't rely on AI to do the job for you. Right. Use it to be more human. You're an absolute killer. You're doing some incredible things. Everybody follow her to see how new commercial real estate agents are doing it right. Sure, I'll have you back on the podcast, maybe in person if we make it to Orlando for the Sell It event in 2025. But I appreciate you very much. Hang out in the studio. I have something to chat with you about in a second, and I'll see you on the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you.